Oh, hi, this is Nick's Forecast, and today's the 4th of January. Hope you guys had a good Christmas and good. Anyways, just want to talk today about selling and buying properties and agents' responsibilities, and that's real estate agents' responsibilities or realtors or whatever we're going to use. Um, I kind of came up on a situation today with one of my wife's friends. She's talking about selling her property, and she talked with an agent at a big franchise shop, and basically the agent kind of and started dictating terms to her, and basically didn't really get into the cost market analysis, which is a big deal. Didn't really explain to her, but didn't explain to her about the commission structures and how they're down. He went there, just kind of made demands. The lady's older in her C's, and basically just made demands on her and said, "Hey, I charge this commission, and you're going to pay this closing cost, and your house is with your property is worth this," because she has land with the property because I'm out in a country area. But and the thing is, as an agent, you're not supposed to be sitting there making demands of the people that you're working for, because you're supposed to be working for them, especially when you're presenting yourself as an agent. This goes back to the 8 profit activators, basically on your pre, and basically when you're doing your pre-screening stuff, you're part of your target market, or they called you up out of the blue, or however you got the marketing, basically lead from your marketing or referral or whatever. There still need to be some kind of decorum when you go in there and talk to them, and not just shoving your fist down the seller's throat. And this is a big problem because they don't explain this well enough, because the agent's not that well trained, especially the agent that's been around for a while, because I knew who the agent was and works at a big franchise shop in the area that I live in, but they still didn't explain everything to you. And as a seller, or as a buyer, yeah, you want an agent that's up front. It's not going to mess around because their time is valuable like yours. But the thing is, they need to explain stuff to you. So, like doing a cost market analysis, you need to explain that to you, because this basically the agent wants to be a dual agent and basically sell her property and then sell another property that he has to her, and he wants to write up a deal, basically subjugated to her selling her property. And since there's no deal on that other property she wants to get, but still the way that he went about doing it. And anyways, I've seen this a lot in my career since I've sold some properties and done so many loans. I've seen this, and I even learned this the hard way. And it's not professional for you to sit there and slam your demands out. This is why I don't like these TV shows, because they always do this. They slam the demand, blah, 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 blah. You'll do this, this, this. Well, the agent, you're working for the seller or the buyer. And so you're presenting your marketing plan, you go over your cost market analysis. But another thing, too, is financing. This agent just threw out there and told me she's going to pay, basically, the seller take this amount of financing, blah, 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 blah. Well, the thing is that in good markets or relatively decent markets, if you do an appraisal, basically you can add the 3 or 4%, used to be 4%, let's just say 3% closing costs on top of the amount of the properties out, and use a real estate agent that already know this, or at least half on it is 3%. What seller takes 1/2, the other 1.5% is covered by the buyer. She was kind of freaked out about it because she didn't know what the closing cost was, and I explained it to her and how those break down. And so used to be able to get 6% closing to the 2008 disaster. That a lot of that changed, but because you used to be able to do 0 down loans where I get 6% closing costs, and I would slam it through every time. So it's a changed world, but the closing costs now, bet you're going to get a % across the board, whether it's the non-prime, Alt-A, or essentially the conforming loans. And so you need to be. The problem is real estate agents don't know anything about finance. They don't know, barely know anything about conventional FHA or VA financing. They say, "Oh, let's talk to your mortgage broker." You know this stuff. If you're an agent, especially an experienced agent, you should know that. You should have explained it to his or her or the individual couple or person that you're basically as a real estate agent, excuse me, bring a loan officer there to explain that. If you're doing a dual deal, then do that. But you need to explain that out because they didn't understand it. So one, you have the commission thing. You need to explain that as a seller, you're on both sides. Okay. What you charge as commission, that's up to you as an agent or your broker or however you have your deal cut or whatever. That's just kind of the way you do it. So, but you need to explain how that works and how that's being paid out. And that wasn't explained to her. That red flag right there, that agent could license if it was listed. Boom. She's over 60 years old. She doesn't know it. She could file a complaint right now to the state. That guy, he'll lose his license in 2 seconds. That gal. In addition to that, didn't explain the financing at all, and basically didn't explain the closing costs and how the closing costs can be added to the purchase price, which I time to close a deal. So that wasn't explained. Also, to the cost analysis, explained enough in detail. She told me what the guy said, but it wasn't explained enough, wasn't brought out. When you do a cost market analysis, that's something that your broker owner or designated broker is supposed to go over when you do. But it's a crappy job. I know top producers old school. They've been around for years and years and years. CMA, which is not bad. You can lease it out. There's a ton of other ones out there. There's just some companies have their own custom made jobs. But essentially your solds, what's expired, and basically, what's off market. But essentially it gets down to basically what's pending. So if you break it down, you're going to show what's sold that's comparable, apple to apple, not apple to orange. And basically, you're going to show the sold, what's listed, and you're going to show what's currently basically is pending and what's expired out. And you need to be able to differentiate and explain those to your party. And this, I'm telling this to all the buyers and sellers out there. You need to know this. Even if you're an investor, you need to know this stuff. When if I investors buying apartment buildings or buildings, I'd still break it down. Or also, I go valuations, a different way of looking at it. For real estate, for residential, it's pretty easy. For the most part, they might have to go further in the country area like I'm in. You go further out to go comps. In a suburb area or your city, generally it's usually pretty close. Appraisers like to stay within usually a couple blocks of the home. But if it's a 2-story with a basement or multi-level, they may have to go further out. But you never know. We have a rambler. You have a level, which is a story. So it's going to vary. A basement, a rambler with a daylight story with a basement, a 2-story split level. So you have all these different variations on there. If it's a real super expensive home, it's going to be a different deal. But it's going to be bedrooms, bathrooms, and what kind of home it is. So this stuff needs to be explained as a seller and a buyer. If you're a seller, ask these questions. You need to explain. If you do not understand it, do not sign. If you have to get a real estate attorney, get a real estate attorney. If agents prefer, you may want to talk to 2 other agents and see what they say. But don't be forced to sign anything, and don't be pressured. One thing it's not good to do that. So you be frank about what's going on, and don't BS your people. But you need to explain to them what's going on. When if you're a buyer buying, you're going into a house, you're looking at it, you like it, have your agent show you a CMA of the house. Look at the comps. They can just run it right there off the sheets. You can see it, and you can see how if it's in a hot market, different deal. Still look at the comps. But if you're in a market that's not, as slowed down a little bit, still look at the comps. You want to look at the sold, what's listed, what's pending, what's expired, so you get a good view of what's going on. Also, too, make sure you understand the financing before you thing. And also, too, make sure there's an inspection addendum in there. Now, in a hot market, that may change. You may have to do a pre-inspection before you even write up an offer. I know Seattle, Portland, they were doing that. The Bay Area, LA, some parts of it, San Diego County were doing it. The Southwest and Arizona, in the Phoenix area, Boise, a lot of those areas, East Coast, same thing along the Northeast, even some parts of the Southeast, some parts of Atlanta and Buckhead, Chicago, and especially North Chicago, Oak Brook, and some of the other areas. So Florida, same way. Miami, go all the way down into Fort Lauderdale, all the way down to the Palm Beach area. Same stuff. Some parts of the Panhandle. So you have a lot of areas that they're pretty hot. And the thing is that sometimes you get pre-inspections. A lot of times you don't need to, but you still may compete. You have your escalator clause in there. Make sure that's gone over for you. Your financing in place. You may have to put down more cash. You may not. You may get beat out. So be prepared for that. The more cash you have down, and basically less you have to finance, easier it is to get the property. But a full cash offer is still going to win. So why I'm explaining this stuff to you is that you need to ask questions, and you need to ask questions of your real estate agent about what's going on. Now, if you're doing a by owner, different deal, call a real estate attorney. Let me say it again, call the real estate attorney. You do not understand if you're a seller or buyer, what's going on with the contracts, contact a real estate attorney. Okay. And so when you're selling a property as a seller, another area that's contention. If you're in a hot market, you want to make your house the best you can. But even if you're in a moderate market or whatever, sometimes you have these real estate agents will come through and tell you to do this, and this. It's going to cost you thousands of dollars. And the real estate agent's not putting out of money. They're just marketing your house and listing it. So it gets in the multiple and they're doing the marketing. But you still, if you put money out, you may not get it back. So it may not be worth doing. And you have to consider that. You may just sell it as is, or don't do any work orders or whatever. But you need to consider that, having you put new kitchen, baths, and all this other stuff in there. I would tell you, really consider it before you do it, because it may not be the best way for you to go. It better just to sell your house as is. Don't do work orders and let it go. Or if you sell your house, maybe you'll paint a couple rooms and the carpets, or put some new wood floors in, or tile, but don't spend a lot if you're not in a really super hot market and where you can get value back, because a lot of people lose on that. When I used to list a lot of property, especially in my mid-range, because that was my range, it's to say 200 to 100,000. A lot of people don't do any of this stuff. Maybe you get your yard, just get it fixed up enough where it looks decent, the yard mode and thing, or maybe paint this room or that room, but don't put a lot into it, because you're not going to get the money out. And a lot of agents like to stage properties. The problem is that most of the agents, they're not staging. You as the seller are paying for it. So what happens is you're making the job easier for the agent, and they're not working as hard for the commission. So you just got to factor that in. Those are those things where you have to consider your dollars going out, your goals, to try to keep the dollars low so you can keep more money in your pocket, because you're going to pay an average, depending where you are in the U.S., the average of the commission and taxes, title and escrow, the total is going to be anywhere from 10 to 12%, maybe 13%, depending where you're at. But don't worry about the commission. You want to pay it because you need to get that multiple, and you need to get exposed to more agents. The internet sites are pretty much all the same. There's nothing special about any real estate internet site. A lot of times the big companies, franchises, blah, 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 talk about their websites, and basically it doesn't mean much. I mean, they go ahead and they go the same chain as an independent or just an individual agent. Their stuff is going to go down in the same avenues as far as networking goes. So a lot of that's kind of bogus, and so as an agent, you need to think about this as a seller or buyer, especially a seller. The more exposure you can get your house, the better. So if your agent comes in and takes pictures and basically does some film on it, do it. Another way, good marketing thing if you're a seller, is you get out yourself and talk about it for 30 seconds to a minute and talk about your house. And that's a selling point that they can shoot out down the road on the internet. And that's a good way to sell stuff because you're personally involved in it. Just consider it. Or what happens is the agent does a video postcard and they use it and send it down their chain if they have a good database. Or another way they can do it too is that they have a Facebook page and they do card for their Facebook followers in that neighborhood. Some agents are smart. They'll have different Facebook pages for different areas that they're farming. Of course, no one ever talks about this because most agents don't know anything about marketing to begin with. So that's a good way to do it if you're an agent, but also too, if you're a seller, is bring up the business card, because it's the way that you personally get involved to sell your house and to sells houses in certain cities, high tech on the West Coast and Northeast, the Southwest. I mean, it varies in cities to cities. They'll do that. We'll have it designated out. Let's say you have an agent that has a Facebook page for this certain part of the city or whatever that they do a lot of business in. What happens? They'll have a Facebook for that, and they may have some of the other platforms for that they can pop out on there, and that's the way to get it out. So if you can get involved in helping your agent do that, do it. Let them do it. But the biggest things is explanation as a seller. So you need the cost market analysis you need to explain to you. That's a big one. Sometimes you may want to go take a look at pose as a buyer and take a look at some of the other houses that are comparable to you in your neighborhood. And, you basically go, and usually you'll go there in the midday when the sellers aren't home, usually, or buyer, because they don't know your sellers, don't know who you are, and go down the street and just go ahead and take a look. I used to do that all the time. That's a good way of doing it. And also you might get some ideas as far as if you decide to stage some parts of your house. But remember, keep it low cost. Your goal is to get the least amount of money out of your pocket. And a lot of these agents get all demand all these types of lists and all this other stuff. No. So we'll guarantee your sales and buy your property, which is really a scam. It's a marketing deal, because if you do 100 properties, they won't buy any of them because you have to follow a 90 point checklist. So if you're a seller, I would tell you to avoid this because they'll never buy it. And it's just a marketing ploy. It's a good marketing ploy and for it, but it's just usually how it is. And so as far as, like I said, the internet sites, they're pretty much all, I don't care if you're on one of the major sites or major, basically the major franchise sites, or even an independent company, they're going to be all the same, because they're all going through the multiple is going to down a bunch of different rows. And so it gets exposed out on multiple platforms. So as a seller, about that, if you're a buyer, you see something you like and you pick it up off a site and the houses you want to see, you call the agent up, great. Be prepared to basically have the agent scored away. They're going to ask you a bunch of questions, and they're going to find out if you're pre-approved. When I was a broker, if you weren't pre-approved, since I had all my buyers in the pocket, and I had always had tons of buyers, they were all approved because I already did it, because I was a mortgage and a real estate broker or agent, or however you want to. So I already did both. So I was about 1,000 miles ahead. And you have to know the financing addendums. If you're a seller, know what the financing and inspection addendum. Have your agent bring those to you so you can take a look at them. You need to know that transaction. And still haven't got with the times, and they have everything on the front pages of the transactional sheet, or not transactional sheet, the purchase sale agreement, excuse me. So you need to know what that is and what the ins and outs are. It's usually 10 plus, but you need the timetables on that. And so you need to check that. But as a seller, you need to look at all these different commercials. Are different. Commercials are a brutal game. Commercials have all those ins and out luxuries on them, and I'll talk about that at another time. But it's commercial listing, when you basically buying or selling commercials, is a whole different ball game. It's not the same as buying the agents only your soul. And they don't. I said if you get an agent, make sure the commercial, because you want someone that knows and understands finance. So if you're a seller, let's top. Essentially, if you're a seller, you're looking for are basically cost market analysis, what it's going to be for you, what the total costs are. Just keep an estimate, because it may not be 100% right, but you'll have an estimate. Explain to you the basically different houses and how sold, listed, pending expireds, any off markets that might be the same they might know about might be a for sale by owner that's for sale similar to yours, but most for sale overpriced, and a lot of for sale by owners are usually underwater anyways. Also, to explain to you the multiples, how it works, their internet process works, how it goes down, kind of get it on a feeling for what they're marketing, what they're going to do. They should have a plan there for us. And it's basically they can hand it to you, or the plan is going to be the CMA, and basically should be in the front page before you even get to the CMA. I usually keep those separate. And then basically you're going to talk about different potential financing of the house. If you have a lot of equity in property, you might want to do a seller carryback. If you're in an area that's not moving, it's slow, consider a carryback or a buyer's option to buy. One day I'm going to explain that in some detail, because that can be good, but it can also be bad. It's a kind of a double-edged sword. Carryback the same way, but usually it's another way to get some extra cash before they refinance. Land contracts or seller contracts, which is 100%. I would say avoid those. They're not always in the interest of the seller. Usually they have basically the seller has a lot of juice in that, and their contract or land contract is not a buyer's option to buy. Generally want it cashed out. Generally, it's what you usually want. But the thing is, carryback is a good thing, because you can have you taking the second, the bank isn't, or the first position, but the thing is you get interest payments every month. If you can get it for 1, 2, 4, 5 years. Usually, mostly you want to do a year contract because it's better for the buyer, and it's money out of their pocket every month, so it's a good thing. And so you want to make sure you get finances, or explain how you can finance it, different ways you can go. The seller closing costs, that's explained to you. Also, to the commission structure, how it's broken down. So the commission, basically, if it's say 6% commission or 7%. If it's commission, then the agent, generally the listing agent's taking 4% and giving 3% to the buyer. And basically that's kind of up to the listing agent to figure that out. I mean, I don't have a problem with it, because I used to do it too. This percent is usually the standard, pretty much 3% to the selling agent, which is the buyer's agent, and 3% to the listing agent. And that's okay, because you're going to get the house sold. If the price is overpriced a little bit, you may have to do a price reduction in 30 days. No big deal, just do it, because you want to get the problem moved out. And so I used to do that all the time. What I used to have to do, if a listing agent says here's a price reduction in 30 days, and basically they know it was a little higher price when you sell it, I would tell you to do it and sign it. If you have to consult a real estate attorney before you sign anything, do it. If you don't understand it, consult a real estate attorney. If you don't understand it, if he doesn't know, have the agent ask their broker, designated broker, their office, to come to the house and you, or they may have another broker in the office who's experienced that can come help them and explain it to you. Do not sign it if you do not understand it. This, if you're a buyer, now I'm going over the buyer's side, and you're buying a property, is contractual law. Because I've run through some stuff in the past, because I've done so many deals, that sometimes you get caught and you slip on things, to forget things. That happens, and I'm not going to lie about it, because it's happened to me, and I've been through the legal thicket. So if you have an agent that's been through the legal thicket, that's the agent you want representing you, because they've been around the block. So an agent that's been through some legal, may have some lawsuits against them, had some stuff happen with the state, that's the agent you want to work with, because they know what's going on in the street. They know how the game works. That's what you want. Basically, you want to be able to explain the purchase and sale agreement to you, so you understand it. A buyer, do not sign it if you do not understand something. Consult a state attorney, or ask for the designated brokers, owner, or whoever's running the company. If you don't understand it, or they send an experienced broker out. So looking for when you're basically looking at the property, find one you like. So thing is, first is you want a cost market analysis on that. Make sure you use it. Make sure you bring your pre-approval letter. They're going to ask you about the closing costs. This is what the agent should be telling you anyways, because you might you might know more about finance than the agent does. And if you do that, then I would drop. They're not helping you. So going over it first, your financing, going over and redoing it to your pre-approval letter, bring it. Basically, also too, if you have to talk about the neighborhoods, some different properties you looked at or why you like this one the best, have them do it for you. Also too, you're not going to know any issues until you do the inspection. So you got to go through the purchase and sale agreement. Besides the first 4 pages, which are important, is going to be things the inspection on the property. That's a way out. The final way out. Now, like the Northwest Multiple Listed Service in the Puget Sound region of Seattle, they have this new finding that they put in there, and basically it's kind of a demand if you get out for pre-approval letter. So, if you're Northwest Multiple Listed, you're gonna have to send a pre-approval along with the purchase and sale agreement, almost right on the spot. Generally, you send it before you even do that, and basically that agent's going to go through and talk to the mortgage broker unless they have finance or they're going to make a big deal about stuff. They may ask for a proof of fund type of deal, and just be prepared for that if you're buying a higher end house. These are things that you need to look at. And why I'm bringing it up is these are just things that you need to know as far as that goes. And it's responsibility of the agent to go through and explain the stuff to the seller, and the seller, if you're going to do a listing, and the buyer. So if you're a buyer, so you want a CMA, you make sure the financing is talked about. You write the purchase and sale agreement. You may have more than just a property inspection. You may have a radon inspection. You may have inspection for foundations, which are outside of the most building inspectors. Some states you have to qualify and take a test and be licensed, but some states don't. And that's up to you. Most of the time, most real estate agents, if they're know what the hell's going on at all, they're going to have a decent building inspector. But remember, it's just every builder inspector is different, and they look at things differently. Remember, there's a lot of times the underwriter is going to ask for that, and so that can play into a deal. In hot markets, it'll get blown over. A lot of times those inspections get waived, but I would tell you to get one for your own safety. You get an FHA loan, that appraiser going out is only checking certain items as inspection. Let me repeat that again. The appraiser going out for an FHA deal is not an inspector. So remember, anything they find out, it's just a checklist, and it's stupid stuff anyways. Because if you're buying a house, it's not brand new or tear, it's just the way it goes. Also, these are things you need to think about on the financing and the inspection. Those are ways out. Also, too, if you're going to add stuff on addendums, the things that you want after the inspection, you may want certain things done. What I usually do when I was basically listing agent, I would tell my seller that a lot of the small stuff we blow over. Just the big stuff is what we're looking for, and that's kind of the case. There might be certain point items that you can go back and forth, reduce the price, or the seller will pick up. You just have to deal with it as you deal with your agent. And so those are things that you have to consider when you're doing it. Also, too, make sure you get a copy of the purchase and sale agreement, so you have it. Even though you signed it, get a copy anyways. And you want that copy. And also, too, you want a copy of basically after it's been signed off and signed around. Also, too, if you're a buyer, when you ask for a purchase and sale agreement and all the major addendums, the inspection addendums, the finance, the buyer's agency, which they should have you sign anyways, buyer's agency pamphlet if they have it, and there could be a whole other host of addendums attached to it, like making sure that at escrow the utilities are paid off. There might be some other addendums having to do with, could be anything, certain parts of the house, things you want done, time clock things as far as timing of the addendum? Do you have for financing? Whatever. There's a whole host. I'm being generic about it because every multiple has massive amounts of addendums attached. Estate companies have their own addendums attached that the listing agent is not going to sign, or vice versa, because it's detrimental. They'll put a line through it and say void. It's gone. And so there's a lot of different addendums attached to everything. And also, too, you can add a bunch of addendums to them. I've had some addendums where I've had stuff where they wanted that lawnmower, they wanted that chandelier, and this. There are going to be items that, and how to go with the seller, that's going to be put out usually in the and that's just the way it goes. Sometimes you can go back and forth in some of those, and you may win some of those. So as a seller and a buyer, you need to look at all the different avenues and explain some real to you that you need to do. A lot of problems at the agent responsibilities. They, a lot of times, as far as pushing people around. If you get an agent like that, basically tell them to hit the road. You want to be bullied, it's not a good thing. I found that a lot. I would have get referrals, and the reason I got referrals because a lot of times the agents they dealt with were pushy or whatever and didn't explain anything to them because they didn't know anything. And seeing the residential, a lot of times you may have bought one for 30 years and you're selling it because you're moving to XYZ because you have children living in the area or some relatives or friends or whatever, and you haven't sold a house, and you have bought a house or sold a house for 30 years or 40 years. You lived in one, and that's it. And there's a ton of those out there. And that's the deal. Even if you're buying, it's the same way for generation X or Y or Z or whatever. These questions are going to come up. When I go to the gym, I got people asking me questions all the time because I know a lot of people, and I was real estate mortgages for like questions. It's the same thing like the lady today talking to my wife. Same type of deal. I have all these questions. Now, the thing is, this agent here, he's opened himself to some legal problems. If he took the listing and something went down, he would go down and lose his license. And the reason that is because he wasn't thorough enough in explanation, but also, too, he doesn't know a lot. Plus, he owns a ton of property, but he didn't explain anything about finance, the commissions. He didn't do a real CMA. Basically, he's trying to get a dual deal where he gets the listing, sells or something, and then possibly sells the house himself. And I used to do this stuff all the time, but you still need to explain to them, your clients, you need to explain everything to them, what's going on, because you're trying to get the cash sola and this and that and blah, blah, blah. And you're trying to shove a commission, the closing costs, and not explaining to them how it works down their throats. It doesn't work. And the thing is, you're just bullying and pushing people around. And so it's a problem in the real estate industry. In hot markets, it's an ego-driven thing. And I've seen it because I used to do it in the beginning, and I stopped doing it because I found out the hard way it was the wrong way to go. So, and I knew where to push agents on doing stuff because I already knew way more than they ever know as far as real estate or mortgages go, because I knew contractual law better and I've been through the legal stuff. And so you really learn it really quick. So my is for you as a seller buyers to educate. You can get online. There's a ton of stuff online about a lot of this stuff, but things you educate yourself. The more real estate you buy, the more educated you get. Buying residential is great, but I tell you to buy commercial. You're going to get investments, or at least get a fourplex after you buy your house. If you go to the tax sales pick and get your hands on, you may or may not get it, but do it anyways. But if you're buying stuff by commercial, it's a whole different beast. But the thing is, you're looking at long term because massive income, residual income. That's what you're striving for. But if you're just, Joe seller, Joe buyer on your house, and you're buying another one, and you haven't done anything in a long time, I'm here to help you out on that one. Go to my website, nickforecast.com, and you can get answer questions for you. Share the video downrange because there might be some people we need to help. But you always can contact me, nickforecast.com. And if you like what you see, go ahead and subscribe. Like I said before, because I'm going to, down the road, I'll be a force to reckon with in industry, because I know more than people doing in the industry, in residential or commercial, because a lot of them don't know what they're doing. The biggest thing is that is the key to everything if you're a buyer. But even if you're a seller, it's still a big key to finding. You know how if your house is going to qualify for an FHA loan. For a loan, they don't have these guidelines on it. They have a few things the appraiser does, but not like an FHA. A lot of loans right now are doing FHA loans because of the rates, and they can get over on a lot of stuff because you don't get a high score. But the thing is, your house may not qualify for an FHA guideline on some stuff. If you have a scored away mortgage that you're dealing with because you're buying another property doing a rollover, they may have a guideline checklist, or your real estate agent, if he's scored away, or him or her, they may have a guideline checklist of that, or you can get it from the mortgage broker. So you know if you're let's say your property is 100,000 to, let's say 750, 100, 850, depending what area you're in, then you might have all the stuff to have it checked before you do anything. Be afraid of inspection done in your house before, even though the next inspector is going to be completely different. At least you know the major stuff is wrong thing, or have a contractor come out and just take a look at it just to check it before you pay them, so you've got it, so you know what's going on. And so that's one thing. A lot of you have sellers that'll offer an inspection but don't have your agent do that. Keep that inspection to yourself. Don't offer, advertise anything, so you lose any negotiating ground. This is one problem. A lot of the agents, they don't know anything about negotiations. So that's just something for you to think about. But nickforecast.com. Contact me, have any questions. Send us an email down to somebody so you can help, they can get a hold of me, and subscribe. Anyways, have a good one. And Nick's Forecast out.